aja dulu, nanti saya panggil. You sit and ya, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Rabbi sholli shodri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'du. Marilah sama-sama kita memanjatkan kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Atas rahmat dan hidayahnya kita bisa berkumpul kembali di pagi hari ini di Masjid Westall, diringankan langkah kita untuk kembali bersama-sama menimba ilmu ya di Masjid Westall ini. Salawat dan salam kita limpahkan pada Nabi besar kita Muhammad SAW, kepada pengikutnya sampai dengan akhir zaman. Insya Allah di pagi hari ini kita akan melanjutkan kajian di minggu pagi di Masjid Westall ini. Dan ini alhamdulillah luar biasa nih, hari ini kita ada speech mengenai Parent Information Session gitu ya. Dan ini rupanya putrinya Pak Aru ini. Jadi pagi hari ini kita akan membahas sesuatu yang mungkin sangat bermanfaat untuk kita semua ya, karena judulnya Parent Information Session. Dan ini saya lihat judulnya sangat menarik karena sangat berhubungan gitu ya dengan kita, dengan putra-putri kita juga gitu. Dan mudah-mudahan banyak hal bisa kita dapatkan dari sharing dengan pembicaranya. Jadi yang akan menyampaikan adalah Farehaa. Farehaa, BA Master of Speech Path, CPSP, Certified Practicing Speech Pathologist gitu ya. Dan mungkin sesuatu hal yang ilmunya ini sering kita pahami, terutama yang memiliki permasalahan ya, putra-putrinya yang kadang-kadang punya mungkin seperti itu ya, yang punya permasalahan dalam berkomunikasi untuk menyampaikan cara berpikir dengan benar. Dan insya Allah kita ada sesi selama 1 jam, nanti mungkin seperti biasa selama 30 menit ada bahan yang akan disampaikan. Judulnya Early Communication Milestone, What to Expect and When to Speak Support. Dan kemudian setelah itu seperti biasa nanti akan ada tanya jawab. Dan seperti biasa juga terima kasih Bapak Ibu yang sudah menyiapkan ya untuk kegiatan selanjutnya, breakfast bersama-sama, dan tentunya mudah-mudahan menjadi berkah untuk kita semua. Kepada Ibu to MSpPath Farehaa, the time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, yep. All right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much everyone for joining today and listening to this presentation. And thank you again for introducing me. Hopefully it's okay if I use English. My Indonesian isn't the best. So for today, we'll be going through the early communication milestones. So what I mean by that is from birth, their speech milestones, what to expect at certain ages, and also for language and play. What to expect, when to seek support as well, and how to access supports if you're requiring. For my background, I'm a speech pathologist. Essentially what I do is I work with children and adults across speech, so working on speech sounds, language, working on language development, and other areas, but that's the most important ones for this one. For my background as well, I work in private practice part-time, and also for Department of Education as well, in assessing students with language difficulties. So, for today's agenda, what we'll be going through is what is early communication? What do I mean by that? Communication milestones for ages 0 to 5, so for kids before they go to school. Signs of delay, so this is personally what I'm looking out for when I'm working with young children. And then accessing early intervention support, so what is on offer from Australia and how to access allied health. Perfect. So, what are early communication skills? Would anyone like to have a go to what I mean by this one? Anyone? Perfect. All good. So I will continue. Essentially, this refers to the abilities children develop before they talk. So before kids are talking at around age 1, they are already using skills that they are required to scaffold their talking and their language. So they use things like gestures, so being able to point at things, waving, using their body in ways to tell their parents how they're feeling. Vocalizations, so when babies are babbling and cooing, that's what we are talking to. Eye gaze is an important one, and they use all 3 of these things before they talk to tell their parents what to request things, so when they are hungry, when they are thirsty, to refuse when they don't want something, and to also talk about the environment. Communication is both non-verbal and verbal, so what I mean by that is non-verbal is communicating with your body and not through spoken word, and then verbal is communicating using word and vocalizations. So some of the key communication skills that children develop in the first 2 years of life are the ones listed there, and these are the ones that we look out for in babies. So 1, eye contact, being able to make eye contact with whoever it is the baby is interested in. Joint attention, so this is an important one. What it means is when the baby and the parent can both look at the same thing and are thinking about that same thing. So a baby might be looking at a bottle and also looking at mum, telling mum, I want that bottle, I'm thirsty. So that's joint attention. Turn taking, so you might also hear babies that like to babble a lot, and they babble at their parents and they have that back and forth. That's turn taking, and that's a precursor to having conversations, so having that back and forth conversation. Gestures, like I said, imitating, so being able to imitate what people are doing. Vocalizing, so cooing, babbling, sound experimentation, echolalia, understanding words and routines, responding to their name, following simple instructions, anticipating what's happening next. Early play skills, so using toys, objects in simple and meaningful ways. They might pick up a spoon and pretend to want to eat. Expressing their needs and wants, so through crying, sounds, gestures, or showing objects. So those are the ones. Next, what I'll be going through is what you should be expecting at each stage in life. So what I've done is I've broken it up for the first 2 years of life, because that's when you have the most amount of development going on. And this is a very brief summary of what it is that you should be expecting. It's not an extensive list, but it's also information that can be readily available as well. So from birth to 3 months, what we're looking at is alerts to sound. So they're very sensitive to sound around them, and that's important because that's how they learn the language of their mother tongue. Quiets or smiles when you talk, making sound back and forth with you, so that back and forth babble. And you can tell that their sounds are different when they're happy or sad. So when they're sad, you can tell they're crying, and when they're happy, it's more happy babbles. Cooing, so making like the ooh, ah sounds. You can tell that they are recognizing loved ones, so people that are close in their life, their parents, siblings as well to an extent. And they're also turning or looking towards voices or people that are talking. So they can start to localize when someone is talking, they can attend to it as well. So babies are very attuned to their environment. They can discriminate between who is their mother and when their mother is talking, and when someone who isn't their mother is talking, so they can do that. 4 to 6 months, so baby is getting bigger. So now responding to facial expressions, so they can respond, they can tell when their mum is happy or sad, and when they're showing those expressions. They look at objects of interest and they can follow it with their eyes. So you might see their little baby likes a ball or a little toy, and they might look at it, and that tells us that they are interested. They react to toys that make sounds, like things with bells and music. So again, babies are very attuned to sounds in their environment. And then also vocalizing during play. So you might hear happy vocalizations from a baby. And then also mouthing objects as well. So that's oral seeking. So they like to feel objects with their mouth. And that's something that's pretty typical for a baby. And this is when their vocalizing starts to become more complex. They're starting using vowel sounds like your ah, e's, your oo's, your and combining it with the consonant sounds, are very simple ones. Go, da, 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 da. You might hear a lot of that at this age, and that's very good to be hearing too. So, I'll continue. 7 to 9 months starts to get a little bit more complex again. So now they can look at you when you call their name. So babies are familiar now with their names and can attend to it. Sorry. Stops for a moment when you say no, so they start knowing what no and yes means. They babble long strings of sounds. So again, before, from 4 to 6 months, it's very simple, ba, ba, oo, ooga. Now it's going ma, 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 up, 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 ba, ba, ba. So it's becoming a little bit more of that complex babble. They're doing a lot of vocal imitation as well. So mums might imitate what baby is doing and baby will imitate back. And then they also recognize the name of some people and objects. So they'll recognize the name of mum and dad, maybe their siblings as well. Also pushing away unwanted objects. So they can tell you when they don't want something too. And it's very easy to see. Okay, so 10 to 12 months. By age 10, this is when they start reaching for objects. This is when they've already developed joint attention. So again, what I mean by joint attention is when they can look at something and look at mum or dad to tell them, I want this. This is what I'm looking at. Or they might just look at something and go, look, that's very interesting, a bird in the sky. There's a ball over there that looks fun. They're becoming a lot more animated with their behaviours as well. So gesture, very, very important. Pointing at things, waving at things, showing or giving objects to mum and dad. And again, that's part of that joint attention. They're making that bond with their parents and saying that I can show you this and I want to show you this. And that's how language develops as well. And then you have some very simple play that's developing as well. So imitating and initiating gestures for things like playing games. So things that you might do with your baby, like blowing kisses, playing peekaboo. They might try and copy that as well because they can tell it's a game and it's that repeated action too. Tries to copy sounds that you make. That's called echolalia. So this is when the reason why they are copying the sounds that you're making is because they're starting to understand that these sounds are meaningful and that's how you start communicating. So babies are picking up that sound is the way that you communicate. So they're starting to imitate it because they're hearing it around them. That's what their parents are doing. That's what people around them are doing. And they're starting to copy because they understand that if I start vocalizing and babbling and copying sounds, I'm communicating something. Things like enjoying dancing and at the... I'm going to double check that. Is this one? Yep, responds to simple words and phrases. So again, with simple instructions, look at mummy, say bye-bye. They know those things, and because we also repeat it very much as well. And then around the 12-month mark is when you would start expecting their first word. I know it says 1 to 2 words, and that's very generous, but it's usually around 1 word by the 12-month mark. Some kids are a little bit earlier, some are a little bit later, but you sort of expect it within the 10 to 15 months period. That's when they start saying their first word. First words is usually mama, dada, hi or bye, and it's very obvious when they have the first word. So that's the 10 to 12 month mark there. Now 13 to 18 months, so that first year to a year and a half, that's when their understanding has become more complex. So now they're understanding that all of these sounds that they are hearing around them are meaning things. One is that they can look around and they understand the question where. Where's your blanket? Where is mum? Where is dad? So they understand the question, and you know they understand the question because they're responding to it. They're looking for the thing you're asking for. They can follow simple directions. Give me the ball, hug the teddy bear, come here, show me your nose. So they have some recognition of body parts as well: face, nose, head, ears, lips. They know how to refuse or say yes, so shake head for no, nod head for yes. Understand and use some words for common objects. So they might by now know the names of things in their world. So, sorry, baby's really cute. Things like, again, bottle, they might know their mum, dad, they might know car, they might know dolls. So very, very basic words. And then some actions like waving, so wave hi, wave goodbye. People in their lives, their siblings, their parents, they would know the names by now because that's very repeated to them. Gestures as well, becoming a little bit more complex. So when excited, they'll do things like clapping, give a high five, making silly faces, because they know that making silly faces is how to show you're silly. And then now, speech-wise, they are using a combination of long strings of sounds and syllables and real words with speech-like inflection. What I mean by that is before the babble is very basic and it's just repeated sounds, but now it's starting to take on that what's cadence that we use when we're talking. So when we're talking, there's that up and down intonation, there's up and down in pitch. And that's when you can start seeing that kids start using as well. They might go, ah, blah, 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 blah. So it's becoming more complex in the way that they are using sound. What should I describe this? Syllables over there is referring to when you break up a word into sounds. So you might say apple, the syllables, and that is ah and pull. So that's what we are seeing at the 13 to 18 month mark. Yes, first words should have been developed by now and consolidated. They should have a couple words as well, so around 10 words that they can use. And I think I've got it over here. So past this point is when I've divided it into 3 things: language, speech, and play, because those are the 3 domains that you want to be looking at. As a refresher as well, so language is the way that we understand what people are saying to us, and then using language to tell people what we are thinking, feeling, our wants, our needs, when we are happy, when we are sad. Speech refers to, and that's a part of confusion with the discipline. We're called speech pathologists, but we work a lot with language actually, so we should be called language pathologists. But speech is the sounds that we use to communicate. So all our consonant sounds, p, b, t, d, k, g, all of that, that's what we are referring to in speech. And then we know that in different languages there are different speech sounds. So there are some, like in Australian English, our R sound is very soft, it's non-rhotic, it's R, and in Indonesian it's a hard R sound. So that's some differences in speech that we look at too. And then we also look at play. So I've explained a little bit further down why we look at play, but very briefly, the reason why we look at play skills in children is that it gives the foundation for kids to practice their language, practice social skills, and practice in communicating. So that's why we look at play. Play also develops that there's very basic play that they start off with first. So the most basic one might just be holding a spoon and pretending to eat, or they might have a card putting it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's simple, and it gets more complex past that. So at the 19 to 24 month mark, language. So uses and understands at least 50 different words. They're expecting that they can use around 50 by the 2-year mark for food, toys, animals, and body parts. So they know what their body parts are. They know what common foods and toys are in their life. Speech isn't very clear still. They're going to have patterns of errors that are typically developing. So yes, dog might be da, shoe might be do, but you know it's what they're referring to because it's repeated, and it's the exact same way that they're repeating it, so you know what is being referred to. At the 24-month mark, so at 2 years old, you can start expecting them to put 2-word combinations together. As a mummy want, dad food, mummy hungry, more water, go outside, 2-word combinations, that's what you're expecting. Follow 2-step directions. When I say 2-step directions, there's 2 things that they're asking your child to do. Get the spoon, put it on the table, use words like me, mine, and you. Use words to ask for help, and then using possessives. So possessives tells us who owns that thing, and that's usually shown through the possessive S, daddy's sock. Keeping in mind that these are based on English development norms, so some of these might not apply to only Indonesian-speaking babies. I know we don't really have possessives in that way, but you can still expect that they can start telling you who owns this thing, who owns that. And then pretend play also emerges. So pretend play is a very, very, very important thing to be looking at this time, and that's when they can understand that one thing can pretend to be another. So they can pretend that this phone over here, you can call on the phone, right? But you can also pretend that this phone might be something like a plate that you can eat off. So that's what it is. What it essentially means is that children can start pretending that one thing is another thing. They might pretend that a spoon is a phone as well. Play scripts like feeding dolls, doctor play, you might start seeing this happening at this age too. And the reason why it's so important is because, yes, they can understand that one thing represents another, and there's also a way for them to practice their language skills too. All right, so 2 to 3 years, language, speech, and play. Again, getting more complex. I use a general rule when it comes to looking at children's language is the age they are is how many words they can typically put together into a sentence. So 1 year old, 1 word, 2 years old, 2 words, 3 years old, 3 words together in a sentence, 4, then 5 words plus, and then so on and so forth. Things like use word combinations. You might go baby, 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 sit down. If you ask for their name, they can give you their name. They can use plural words, beds, toys, dances, what else is there? Dogs, cats. We're starting to see verb development, so verbs like the action words. We've got the ing ending, so child might go, I'm eating, I am running. They're starting to develop their understanding of grammar. What babies tend to do is they're not perfect when they start, well, children. They will overgeneralize grammar rules that they are hearing. So the most common one in English is the ed ending. Danced. What's another one? Can't think of anything else right now. But they will overgeneralize the ed ending, and that's the way that they are learning that these are the grammar rules that we use, so that you can tell when things happen in the present, the past, and the future. They can start showing you their reasoning skills, so their thinking. If you ask them, why do you need a jacket when it's cold outside? They might say, well, it's cold, I need it. So they can give reasons for things and events that are happening. Why do we eat? Because I'm hungry. And they can start asking questions, why, what, and how. So the things that we also look at is WH questions, why, what, when, where. How is another one, but it's not a WH, but we do look at that one too. Now, in terms of speech, so speech refers to the sounds that they should have by then. By 2 to 3 years, they should have and be able to use p, b, t, d, k, g, m, n, n, w, y, h, and f. So those are the ones that we can expect they can start using more consistently. They might still be a little bit incorrect, but they should have the majority of this. The speech is becoming more clear, so we know that when they're still little, we can't really understand everything that they're saying. We're relying on what they're looking at to tell what they're trying to tell us. So speech is more clear, but not fully understood yet. It's probably more clear to their parents, because they are the ones that know their child most, but to people that aren't their parents, not so much yet. And then play, we have parallel and cooperative play. What I mean by parallel is that 2 kids might be playing next to each other, but not on the same thing. So they might be playing with cards, not together, but by themselves. So that's parallel play. And then cooperative play is when they start playing with the cards together. So that's the difference between parallel and cooperative. So those are the 2 things that you will be sort of seeing at 2 to 3 year age. 3 to 4, getting more complex. So 1, they can start comparing things using words like bigger, shorter, faster, slower. They can tell you a story from a book or video, so that's their narrative skills. They can tell you, you read a story with your child, you ask them what happened in the story, and they can typically tell you the general gist of what happened in it. They can start using location words, inside, on, under, in, at. They can start using the little words in English like a or the when talking, like a book or the dog. They can start recognizing very common symbols, things like stop, and even things like fast food symbols like Hungry Jacks, Macca's, the things that they see every day in every life, they start understanding that this is referring to something. So that's referring to the idea that they are developing their print knowledge. So print knowledge is what they need to start being able to read. Now, speech, by age 4, they should be able to speak in a way that most everyone can understand what they are saying. By 4, they should have majority of their sounds. The only ones they don't develop by this age is usually the th sound, the j, and j, possibly ch as well. So those are the ones that they're developing. Again, over there, I've written down, they'll make some mistakes still in later developing sounds. J, sh, ch, s, v, and z, and th. So those are the ones I might still make mistakes on. We're not expecting them to fully have these sounds just yet, but they should have most of them, and in a way that makes them understood by the people that are around them. They can start saying consonant clusters. So consonant clusters are 2 consonants put together, like b, blend, b and u. That's your consonant cluster. T and what, tweet, and d in sand. They may not pronounce it all correctly because, again, children grow up with having patterns of errors that are typical for their development. They typically then will grow out of it by a certain age. What else? And then plays, the play becoming more complex. They are now playing more in groups with other children and highly imaginative play scripts. So these play scripts can have full stories as well. They might have a play script where someone's a witch and the witch is hunting someone, and then they might go the next day to continue that play script. So it's becoming more complex. They've got stories as part of their play. And they can pretend to be something else they're not. They might pretend to be a doctor, they might pretend to be a mum, they might pretend again to be a witch or a hunter, or whatever it is that kids are interested in these days. Let's go 4 to 5 years. So this is the last one that I've got in my communication milestones, and this is typically before they go into school. This is what we are looking for, and this is a good indication that they've got strong language skills. I didn't put play in there because by this age, the types of play that they should be presenting with have already developed, and they should be able to use that to play with other kids. So again, with language, we're looking at sentences that have 5+ words. We're looking at sentences that are longer, more complex. They're usually grammatically correct as well, so they're making less errors. When they are telling you a story, they can tell you who the main character is. So who is in the story, where it's happening, the setting, why is it happening, and what else might be happening too, so they can connect all those ideas. They can start using more complex location words, behind, beside, between. Let's see, my car is behind the table, the phone is in between the 2 columns. They can start using words for time, so they can start telling you time of day. So yesterday I played with my friend at the park. Tomorrow I'm going to go to the movies. They can start following simple direction rules to play more complex games as well. And this is when their print knowledge starts to develop, and that's because they're also doing it in kinder. If your child is going to kinder, they can recognize the name 10 or more letters, usually the letters of their name. Can write their own name. So they can also start imitating reading and writing from left to right. So yes, this will depend on the culture as well. So for Indonesian and English, yes, it's left to right. For something like Arabic, they will be reading it from right to left. And that's because they're adopting what is it the culture is using. And they can start blending words as well. Cupcake becomes cupcake, and identify some rhyming words like cat and hat. The reason why these are there is because these are the precursor knowledge that you need to be able to read. So when reading, you need to be able to blend, to be able to break apart sounds. So we've got cat, cat. Those are the sounds we've broken them up. So that's breaking them apart. Kids need to be able to blend the sound so they can see the sounds cat, cat. The sounds together make a word, and they know that word means something. It means a cat. And it can rhyme as well. So cat, hat, bat, mat, that. So those are the basic skills that you should be seeing, and then you can do lots of play and nursery rhymes that you can do with your kid to develop those skills. Speech-wise, so by 5, they should be fully understood. The speech is clear. Most speech errors should be resolved, but there might still be some that haven't. The most common one for kids is going to be the and w sound substitution. So you might see that a child might say rabbit as wabbit, race as wace. That's common until up to 5 to 6. But most other ones should have been resolved. So something like fronting, cat. A kid might say cat as tat, and that should be resolved by then. So most of those errors are done. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So how does play relate to language? So I spoke a little bit about play. And the reason why it's so important to play with your children, and then also to encourage them to play with other kids as well. The reason being is that it provides a context for kids to have their social interactions, build social skills as well, like negotiating, cooperating with other kids, so being able to play together, sharing toys, sharing objects, turn taking. It's my turn, I'm going to throw the ball first. Now next is your turn, you're going to throw it next. Patience. And learn language skills like narrative building, so building stories. They'll build stories through play. Like again, they might have a play script going on that's like they are race car drivers and they're driving for, I don't know, Formula 1, and then they won, and then they're going off to the next game, and there's something else that's going to happen. So that's their narrative building and practicing new vocabulary. They start learning to use language to express their thoughts, their ideas, and listen and respond to others. And also it provides the opportunity for kids to practice using new words and phrases, develop their vocabulary and also their grammar. It's the most natural setting for a child to be able to practice using their language, and that's why we, as speeches, we always talk about play skills. Yeah, oh yeah, awesome, I can do that. Yeah, no worries. So, I'm going to wrap up in a little bit. I think I spoke a bit, might skip that one. Why are early language skills important? So it's directly correlated to later success in life. If you have strong language skills as a child, you will do better academically, and these are the 5 domains why. Yes, under language, understanding, casting instructions, vocabulary growth. I might talk a little bit about social and emotional. So socially, if they have strong language skills, they can develop better friendships because they can negotiate when things go wrong. They can share, they can play cooperatively, and they can also express their feelings and regulate themselves when they aren't feeling the best. All right, so what to look out for. So things to flag in your child's communication development that will tell you if they are requiring additional support. So I have divided it into different domains. So this is personally, again, some other clinicians might look at other things, but generally this is what we are looking at. Speech, no babbling by 12 months. Very unclear to familiar people by age 3, and very limited consonants. So you might see that they're only using a small group of consonant sounds, you pet, but, tet, very briefly. Language, understanding, so they aren't responding to their name by 12 months. They have difficulty following simple instructions. Expressing, so no consistent single words by 18 months, very limited vocab, not combining 2 words by 2 years. So what I look for is if they don't have 2-word combinations by 2, that's usually an indication there's a language delay and parents need to be supported so that they can make more language-rich environments for their children and support the language development. Social communication, so the way that we use, that we communicate to build relationships, limited eye contact or joint attention, so they are in their own world a little bit, and rarely initiates interactions. They might not want to play with other kids. Play, so limited interest in toys, does not engage in pretend play, so they're not doing any of the pretend things you're expecting. Repetitive or rigid play patterns after age 3, so it might just be something like rolling a car back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that's very a repetitive play. And prefer solitary play, so they prefer playing by themselves and not with other kids. And generally, so if you know that there is a family history of language delays, neurodevelopmental disorders like autism, ADHD, intellectual disability, or learning disorders, it's always good to be aware of it. So we know that it can be passed on as well, or there might be a family history of being more predisposed to these things. And these things also connect to your language development communication. So supports. If you are thinking that your child needs additional support, there are many ways to go about it. Again, speech pathologist is just one allied health practitioner that you can go to, and I'm framing this in a way that how you can access our services. So one is NDIS, Early Childhood Approach Under 6. So NDIS is the funding from the government to families so that they can afford allied health like speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists. Medicare, so under a chronic disease management plan, community health services for children, and then accessing privately. So I'll go through all of these ones, and then that should be the end. So NDS, Early Childhood Approach. So this is for children younger than 6 with developmental delays. So developmental delays isn't just in speech language, it might also be physically too. So they're not walking by a certain age. Yes, physically, at speech and language and play. So if they're seeing that they are delayed, they can typically access supports. Children younger than 6 don't need a diagnosis to access these supports, but above 6 they will be needing a diagnosis such as autism. The way that you can access NDIS is one, connect with your local early childhood partner. So on their website, it'll show you who they are in your area. Alternatively, you can chat with your local GP, your doctor, or your early childhood educator, or you can call NDS directly about how you can access their supports if you are thinking that they have a delay and are going to be requiring one-on-one intervention. Medicare, so Medicare entitles you to, under a chronic disease management plan, entitles you to about 5 allied health sessions a calendar year with a rebate. So this isn't just for speech pathologists, but for all allied health therapists. The rebate currently, and I may be wrong, but this is what I've seen recently, is $61.80. So you'll get that amount back if you are accessing a speech pathologist. Entitles you to 5 sessions, so 5 sessions with that rebate. To access, it's just to go to your GP and discuss that you have concerns for your child's development and you think that they need allied health support. 5 sessions is across all allied health therapists. So your GP might decide that you need 3 speech pathology sessions and then 2 occupational therapy sessions, and that's how they might divide up the funding. Next is community health services. So most hospitals in Victoria will offer free or low-cost allied health and support services, inclusive of all the things listed over there. For these ones, it's again connecting with your local community health service. So in this area would be Monash Health or Peninsula Health, or GP for more information. And these services are typically for vulnerable or disadvantaged families. So these are the families that they will be prioritizing on their wait list if you do decide to go through community health. With NDIS, they will be prioritizing these families more. Lastly, accessing privately. So all speech pathologists in the private practice field, such as myself, do NDIS as well. So you do NDIS and you also do private. You don't need a GP referral to see a speech pathologist. You can look them up yourself and pop yourself on the waiting list. Cost of services dependent on the provider. You can find your local speech pathologist through our speech pathology board, Speech Pathology Australia, if you just search that up. And you can find out who's in the area that you can connect with. I will say, because there is a bit of a limited number of speeches, increased demand, wait lists are long. So wait lists can be upwards of 6 months to 18 months. It's quite a long wait list, and so it's always good to look around and look broadly if you're thinking you need one. Other than that, thank you so much for listening to the presentation. I'll open up the floor to any questions that people may have.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Kyla, for your amazing presentation this morning. And I think all of us maybe feel this is something that we can have a lot of discussion. And some points that maybe I will refer to what you have delivered today is about the milestone, about speech, language, and play for children in between 0 to 5 years old, and also about recognition in delay. In delays, and also about how to seek support. This is also something is also important here. and also maybe how we seek some things like action, yeah, in order to have something that maybe we can help us, yeah, in order to prevent something will happen in the future. So, Bapak Ibu, if you have any question, maybe please raise your hand. This is, I think, it's a good time for us to have good information from Ms. Kyla. Yeah, thank you, Pak Choi. Pak Takmir, silakan.
Yes, that's also my nickname. So, yeah, silakan kalau mau pakai Kaisa.
Thank you so much, Kaisa, for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. And then thank you so much for sharing with us about your expertise. And then we are very glad that you involved in this community. And then it's very interesting. So I saw that you presenting the milestone of the babies, and then what kind of like a milestone that baby should achieve in every like period of their age. And then there are a lot of milestones, so we understand. And then probably what I can see in the from 7 and 9 months old, you mentioned that if the baby cannot respond, the baby should like respond to their name. For example, if I have a baby like with the name Kaisa, 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 and then they didn't respond, something like that, what should we do? I mean, when is the best time that we should aware that a baby didn't respond or it didn't reach their milestone? Should we be aware in the early months, like 2 or 3 months, or should we like start like aware in the 7 or 9 months, or maybe in like 2 years old, something like that? Which one is the most important milestone that we have to aware, something like that? And I know that you also the organization that we can find to seek the support or something like that. But yeah, the specific question is which time that is the best for us to seek the help if we see that the baby or the baby didn't reach their milestone. Thank you so much.
Thank you also for the question. That's a very good one, and one that parents always come up with. Oh, yes. 2 questions. You want to go?
Thank you for the change, and thank you very much for the speaker for the presentation. That's really useful knowledge for me, especially because now I am a new parent. I have baby 11 months.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So what I want to ask you is that this is regarding language. So now I and my wife is really confused about this way. Should I speak English with my baby always, and also my wife still speak Indonesian language, so that the baby will master
2 languages, yeah.
Or should it be like this? I and my wife, for now, until let's say 4 years old or 5 years old, just to speak Indonesian, and then start from 6 years, we will speak English, something like that. So which one is the best strategy so that our baby can master
2 languages. No, thank you as well. That's also one that most people also like to ask about. So I'll answer the first question first, and then I'll answer the second one, because they're both very, very important ones. So to answer the first one, when to essentially seek support if you're noticing things, it does depend always on the person, but what I think is if your baby isn't using most of their early communication skills, so things like the joint attention, the eye gaze, not responding to their name by around the 7 to 9 months to a year, then you should flag it and also consider seeking support. The reason being is one, if they're not responding to the name, it actually might mean that they might have hearing loss as well. So you want to get their hearing tested. perhaps that's the reason why, and they're going to be needing either grommets to get the fluid out, or they're going to be needing a hearing aid. So that's one possible reason. And two is because we always say the earlier you seek support, the better, because we want to be making language-rich environments. If your child isn't combining two words by two, so that's what I think is a little bit more important for me to look at. So children might have their first words a little bit later, a little bit earlier, but if they're not combining by around the 2-year mark, then I would also consider seeking support, especially if they are, you're also noticing other things as well, so that their speech is unclear, they have very limited vocabulary, like I mentioned before, and also their play is quite limited, so they're not doing any of the pretend play. I hope that answers your question. So it does depend, but yes, the earlier the better. So if you're noticing, okay, they're not making sentences, they're not responding to me when I'm calling their name, they're not responding to questions I'm asking them, or they're not even chatting to their parents about things and whatnot, then you might want to go and flag that and go to a GP to get connected. Now, in terms of bilingualism, so that's a very big topic also in the realm of speech pathology, because unfortunately as well, is that the speech pathology as a profession is very, very highly dependent on monolingual speakers, so monolingual being one speaker, but we know that in this current climate, bilingualism is very, very big. What we say as speech pathologists is some parents might say that, oh, I should only speak one language because if I speak two, it's going to mess with my child's development. They're not going to pick up both languages well. What I say is that high quality language is more important. So if you think that you can provide your child high quality English and Indonesian, either separately or together, then go for it, absolutely. I wouldn't recommend combining two languages in one sentence. I know that's something I do now because I learned both languages. I think I learned Indonesian first and then it was English, and now because the English took over, my Indonesian's not as good, so I'm always mixing them up. But when you are speaking to your child, high quality language. So yes, it might be that mum speaks Indonesian and dad speaks English. It doesn't matter who's speaking it, as long as when you're speaking it, it's high quality. It's the way that the language should be used. It's grammatically correct. The sentences are complex. And you're also using them separately, so you're not combining both languages in one sentences. So something like, mama makan like apples and bananas, right? I personally wouldn't recommend doing that just because you want to make sure they can distinguish between the both languages. They may start speaking like that later, but that's because that's how they sort of develop their understanding of the language rules. With bilingual kids as well, they tend to pick up, if they're simultaneous, so like you're saying, that they're learning both English and Indonesian at the same time. They may take a little longer actually to develop both languages because it's two languages and it's cognitively a little bit more. So oftentimes kids will go through a silent period, so that's when they are kind of taking on both languages a little bit. They're still thinking about the rules, they're still thinking about how to use it before they start speaking. So you might see that happen again. But yes, I would never say, don't speak either language, speak both of high quality. And if you think that that can be provided, then absolutely go for it, because being bilingual is an absolute advantage in this world. And I would never deny a parent from speaking both languages if they want their child to have both. Hopefully that answers that question there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kyla, for your answer. Hopefully this will answer all your curiosity about the problem. Ibu-ibu, you have any question? Yes. I think the mic is already there. Please use that mic. Yeah. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Untuk high quality language Indonesia, saya nanyanya Indonesia aja ya. Jadi kalau misalnya selama ini tuh dalam proses tumbuh kembang anak-anak di Indonesia tuh misal ada pameo anggapan kalau anak perempuan sama anak laki-laki, perempuan itu lebih duluan ngomong daripada aktivitas fisiknya. Terus kalau yang laki-laki fisik dulu, habis itu baru ngomongnya. Nah itu tuh kayaknya kejadian ketika lihat keponakan. Nah kita tuh udah khawatir banget ketika belum ngomong lancar gitu. Tapi sekarang tuh ketika dia udah 4 tahun ngomongnya banyak banget. Tapi padahal sebelumnya itu kayak nggak ngomong sama sekali. Nah itu apa ada? Karena tadi saya nggak lihat paparannya korelasi antara gender sama tumbuh kembang fisik dan kemampuan speech. Itu gimana ya Mbak?
Okay, I might repeat back the question in English just so I know that I've got everything. So the question was, girls.
Yeah. It's a bit about the the difference between gender, boys and girls, and then how the development of the recognition in language and also physical activity.
Yep. And then also girls tend to start speaking earlier, physically a little bit, but I wouldn't say delayed, but later developing. And then for boys, it's the physical first, and then language that comes. I myself haven't gone into too deeply the correlation between genders and then also the development, but yes, it is known that girls tend to start speaking a little bit earlier than boys. That's correct. In terms of how it relates to their physical development, yes, it's going to be different. Again, I wouldn't compare them both. I would just look at the general milestones. Like, yes, they should start walking by this time frame. They should start having their 1 words by this time frame. They should start having their 2 words by this time frame. Even though for boys, yes, they might be a little bit later developing. Even when they're later developing, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong. Like I said, some kids are late talkers. What's more important is us as parents is creating the language-rich environments and the play-rich environments that they have, so that they still have quality exposure, regardless if they're a boy and a girl. So what that means by the quality exposure is talking to your kids constantly, following your child's lead. So especially as we say something, follow your child's lead in play, so following their interest. Sometimes it doesn't always come naturally. Some parents might want to ask their kids more questions about what they're doing instead of following their lead. So that's how you make a language-rich environment. Reading to your kids as well, reading stories, having that bedtime story time, talking about what they are listening to and reading to, not expecting them to talk, because you don't want to force it, but having that quality exposure. So, yes, I hope that answers the question. Let me know if I've missed anything. I know there's a part of the correlation between gender and physical development and speech and language. Generally, they follow the same pattern. So I think there are a couple little differences. I just can't remember what they are. Oftentimes girls have more complex language than boys, yes, when they're still young. But the general things they should still be following. So they should be following that they still have their first words by around 1. They should be having their 2-word combinations by 2. Their play, regardless, should still be developing the same. They should still be having pretend play by 2. They should be able to pretend that a spoon can be a phone. They might not be doing it lots because, again, it's different. But you should be able to see that they have that understanding. So that as long as they have the understanding, that's more important. And then also making that language-rich environment is important as well. Yeah.
Jadi milestone-nya tetap harus diikutin meskipun gendernya beda gitu ya. Jadi,
absolutely, yeah. We could say that still follow the milestones because they are for across both genders, with the understanding that yes, girls will typically start talking a little bit earlier and boys a little bit later. But I think, like I said before, if you're flagging that they aren't talking by 2, not talking at all, I would still flag it. Hello? Yep. I would still flag and go to allied health because, yes, it might just mean they're a late talker and they're going to be fine, but it also might mean that they're not fine and there's something else going on and they need additional support. So you want to always err on the safe side and then seek that support rather than not, because it won't do harm. It won't do harm to look for allied health. It won't do harm to think about how can I make their language environments better, even though you can see that the trend is they might be a little bit late speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Ibu, do you have any other questions about? No? Okay. Bapak-bapak? Okay, if the Kyla, maybe I also have one question. I think this is something that because I'm a teacher in Australia, and I just want to know about how, for example, if there is a delay in communication when they are in the early child, is that affect with the child memory, or how they develop in intellectual thinking or abstract thinking, something like that?
That's a good question. I get, because I also work in schools as well, so we work with psychologists who do a lot of the thinking, the cognition. They are correlated. I wouldn't say it causes. I wouldn't want to go that far because I don't have the full knowledge, but there is correlation that if there are delays in their speech and language, it can be correlated to things like poorer working memory. So the working memory is essentially when you're able to hold many different things in your brain, coordinate it, and then talk. So an example would be like, with working memory, what's a good one? Oh, you're given a math question. In that math question, you need to, one, coordinate language, you need to read the question, you need to be able to understand the equation as asking to add, to subtract, whatever it is. Then you need to be able to work it out. So that's your working memory, everything that you need to do to then be able to do something. It may be correlated to processing speed. So processing speed is how fast you can take in information from your environment, understand it, and then respond. And yes, so the reason why, yes, we always look at delays in speech and language is because it can be correlated to things like neurodevelopmental delays, like intellectual disability, so that's the cognition you're speaking of, lower cognition. It can be associated with autism as well. It can be also associated with ADHD. So it's sort of a two-way thing. So if they have ADHD, you'll find that perhaps their language isn't as good. If they're autistic, there's going to be differences in their language and speech because it's just a little bit more later developing. So they are correlated, and that's why we flag it early, because you might see more things crop up in later years, especially in the school when things become more difficult and the demands are more. You'll start seeing more outbursts. You might start seeing them more emotionally unregulated. They can't tell you what they're thinking and feeling too. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kyla. Amazing for all your information. Bapak Ibu ada statement tanya? Kalau nggak ada, so we just want to say thank you so much, Kyla, for your presentation today and also for sharing with us about your knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Maybe if we have private question, maybe we can contact you. Yeah? And then because this is Dr. Omaru, maybe you can also ask Omaru, and then maybe we can talk with you. Yeah? So we have like a free
consultation.
About this problem,
Yeah.
Actually, I also have a question about, because I did some research about anxiety.
Of course, yes.
Yes, anxiety. So
Yes.
very related with delays for kids.
Very related, yes. I see lots of kids' anxiety, yeah.
There's a lot of data about that. We really want to know about how we can fill in the gap for the students who have those problems. How to encourage them with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we said Alhamdulillah, Kyla, for all your sharing with us this morning. Hopefully this will give us more knowledge and understanding about how we can help young children, especially our own children, if they have the same problem with this one. Thank you so much. So, and before we close this session, we also have something that our Takmir will give to you, a certificate for your
thank you so much.
for this morning. Pak Takmir, silakan.
Sini dulu. 1, 2.
Thank you so much, and also thank you so much for ibu-ibu and tante-tante for bikin makanan. We're gonna go eat now.